Hello out there, casual fanatics. Jeremy here, and this is another casual vlog. Uh, really, I just want to come in and give you some heads up as to what's going on with the week and talk about one thing in particular, as is per my custom. In fact, this vlog's mostly going to be about the one thing because it's kind of an interesting, and by interesting I mean infuriating thing. My voice is a little deep, not because I'm sick again, but because I've literally been up for about half an hour. So I haven't had a lot of time to wake up yet. Or for that matter, drink my morning tea. Yeah, I do still have videos planned for this week. I'm going to be largely working on them probably tomorrow. Maybe a bit of it today. I've been playing Pathfinder quite a bit lately, so admittedly sometimes that takes up some of the time that I could be using to work on videos. While people are going to be at MagFest, I actually have the weekend off, so I think I had planned to do kind of comparisons, a couple of comparison videos this week on a new character. I think what I may do is I may make one of them this week and then make the other form next week, so that we have back-to-back weeks of comparison vids. I'm still conceptualizing what I want to do on that. So the major thing I wanted to talk about actually is, I don't talk a lot of politics on this show myself, on this channel myself. David used to talk a fair amount. Occasionally we got into it on the CasualMode podcast back in the day, but I don't talk about it a lot about it itself. And after round about a year of this channel existing, I am going to break that barrier. I mean, you already know that I have great care for some issues that a certain party in American politics, the Republican Party, or the GOP as they're sometimes referred to, have been fighting against for quite some time. LGBTA, awareness and rights, big on that. Gee, I wonder why. I do care quite a bit about the environment as well. I mean, it's kind of hard not to when I live in a state that is getting racked by more and more earthquakes because people keep putting shit in the ground in order to get more shit out of the ground. And of course, I do care about the economy because, I mean, it took me 10 years of working to finally get at a job where I could actually afford health insurance. Before that, I had no job that offered me health insurance, at least not any health insurance that I could afford. So, kind of a big deal. But, recently, in fact, just yesterday, it was reported that one of our Supreme Court justices, Antonin Scalia, died. No, not here to dance on his grave. I'm not that big of a dick. In fact, my dick is quite average sized. Sorry, you didn't need to know that. Anyway, I come not to celebrate his death. I come more to celebrate the fact that he's no longer on the Supreme Court as a result. Because the guy was kind of a dick, He was very much a right-wing activist judge. His decisions were solely based on his personal right-wing beliefs, many of which made no goddamn sense. And so he was one of the dissenters against, say, the Supreme Court's decision to allow states to marry same-sex couples, which is something that my state is still pissed off about. My state and others. And what normally happens when a Supreme Court justice dies or retires is that by law, constitutional law, the president appoints a successor. Now, with our political, our legal system being what it is, our government being what it is, Congress does have every right to say, no. They do have every right to say that to an appointment. But one of our leading presidential candidates here in America, a gentleman by the name of Ted Cruz, wants to kind of jump the line. He, in his own words, said that he wants to make sure that that Scalia's replacement doesn't get picked until the next president is installed, which, at the time of this posting, is still almost an entire year away. You can't do that, Ted. You can't do that. A year without the Supreme Court. You know, our Supreme Court is supposed to have 9 justices on it. Why? Because that's an odd number. Because then you always have someone that will break a tie. You can't have 8. Because then you might have 4 people saying one thing and 4 people saying another thing. Although in this case it'd be more like 5 and 3, because if I remember correctly, there were actually 5 people who had voted for allowing same-sex marriage, and Antonin Scalia was one of 4. But with only 8 judges, it's very possible you may not ever get shit done, because you can deadlock really quickly. Ted Cruz seems to be okay with this. He seems to be okay with crippling 1/3 of our government. He seems to be perfectly fine with crippling the judicial branch, even though not constitutional. No, it's not. There is nothing in any part of the Constitution that says Congress can force a delay on the appointment of a Supreme Court justice for the period of for an entire year. Of course, that's not the funniest part. The funniest part is the implication of this statement. The funniest part is that he thinks that if he waits that year until after, the next inauguration, that he seems to think that the person that's going to be elected is going to be Republican. He seems to be absolutely certain that that's going to be the case, because otherwise, why would he say that? Of course, an alternate implication could be Obama's a black man and he's president. But no, we don't want the black president to pick it. No, we'd rather have a white person pick it. Because let's face it, Ben Carson's not going to win. We'd rather have a white person win. Never mind the fact that that white person could very well be Hillary Rodham Clinton or Bernie Sanders. Feel the burn. No, he's highly certain it could be. I'm highly certain he thinks that he or one of his fellow Republicans, with the possible exception of Donald Trump, is going to be president of the United States. And here's the part where My inner professor gets to show through. You're about to learn something today, kids. You see, in Greek plays, there was this element often used called hubris. It was a device where one of the characters would literally or figuratively challenge the gods. And by the end of the play, said character would have gotten the smackdown from Mount Olympus. This word survives to this day, only now it means to gain comeuppance for similar arrogance. What Ted Cruz is doing is arrogant as fuck. But it's not going to be divine retribution that brings him into hubris. Nope. That's where you and I come in. If you live in, you're watching this, if you live in the United States, if you are over the age of 18 and you are not already registered to vote, you had better register to vote before the general election in November. Why? Because we are going to do something for Mr. Cruz. If for some reason Congress does manage to block this appointment for a year, which I highly doubt is going to happen, but if it does, we're going to make him pay for it. We are going to do everything we can to make sure that they regret ever doing that and that no Congress ever does that shit again. How? It's simple. Go out and vote. I know, some of you probably disillusioned with the political process, probably outright pissed off with this political season. You have every right to be. It has been hell. But maybe I might explain things a little bit. Personally speaking, in the past, the American political process has pissed me off, has really just tore me up inside, to the point where I didn't want to participate in it because it was fucking pointless to me. I mean, the last time I had actually voted in a general election was all the way back in 2008. Yes, I voted for Obama. Suck it. Anyway, most of the time I hadn't voted in those because, especially on the state level, it felt like they didn't give a shit about me. At the time, I was registered independent, and back in that day when I first registered, Oklahoma, not the kindest place to independents. In fact, until this year, independents could not vote in any primaries whatsoever. The Democrats finally reached a hand out and said, you know what, boys, come on in. Come on in, independents. We need your help. Come on. Which is a great thing for the Oklahoma Democratic Party to do. Thank you. I did register to vote as a Democrat anyway, but thank you. And just any candidates that are not a part of the duumvirate, the big two, Democrat and Republican, it almost takes an act of the legislature to get them in on the ballot. I think the last major third-party candidate that we had on the ballot in Oklahoma was Ross Perot, which goes to show how often that happens. But, yeah, so I have my problems with the American political process. I don't think there's anybody in the U.S. who doesn't. What changed for me this year? Well, I have been seeing the Republicans do a lot of stupid shit. not just on the federal level, on my own home state level. For instance, while gas prices have been tanking and the oil industry in my state has been drying up, the economy in my state has been dropping into the abyss. Why? Because energy companies make up a vast majority of Oklahoma's economy. And what was our Congress doing during that time? What was our legislature and House doing during that time? Worrying about where people put their junk and why is the Ten Commandments in front of the state capitol? A blatantly religious law system in front of a secular government. Really? Oh, and panhandlers into medians. That's a safety issue. You know what's also a safety issue? Fucking earthquakes. Yeah. Oklahoma's been a case study in not putting all your eggs in one basket, and I have no idea what they were thinking. Maybe they thought the thunder would counterbalance, a literal handful of powerful energy companies. Doesn't work that way. One NBA team does not a balanced economy make. Especially not when your state's biggest newspaper is fucking around with their personnel. I'm still mad about Scott Brooks being ousted. Anyway. Yeah, I've seen GOP do a lot of stupid stuff. I've seen people from the GOP be absolutely terrible. I've seen Donald Trump gain a legitimate following for what is very likely trolling everyone. I've seen Ted Cruz stay step for step behind him when Ted Cruz is one of the most terrible people on earth. I've seen my own senators, one of my own senators, Jim Inhofe, go into Congress with a snowball and claim that its very existence denies climate change. I wish I was kidding about that. Oh, and I've also seen my own senators, when the government shutdown happened some years ago, I saw them take the money that was paid to them, not give it back, but take the money and say, fuck you, this is my money and I need it now. While other senators paid it back, including a fair amount of Republicans, I should be fair, Inhofe and Langford said, fuck you, money's ours. And to make matters worse, if I remember correctly, Ted Cruz is on the technology committee. Ted Cruz is also aside from being a climate change denier, also one of the people who thinks net neutrality needs to get taken out behind the woodshed and shot. Again, I've seen the GOP do a lot of stupid shit and attack groups of people that I care about. I've seen Republicans who have taken the problem of police brutality and police murdering people and say, well, it was the black person's fault. Fuck you. And it got to the point where I just had to say, you know what? No. Fuck that shit. I'm not going to let 4 years of that happen. Fuck you. I am a Bernie Sanders. I'm a Bernie Sanders supporter. I'm going to be voting for him the whole way. I can tell you that. Although, if it comes down to choices between whatever awful person comes out of the Republican candidate race or Hillary Rodham Clinton, I will probably vote for Hillary. Reluctantly. She contradicts herself a lot. Like more than any person who supposedly has a set platform should. But yeah, that's why I'm registered to vote this year. Sheer vendetta. Let me take a page out of the Dune books. This is Canley, you know? They have declared Canley on my kind and everything that I care about. Well, Bert ain't going down easy. So, not long after we got settled in here, my brother and I made sure that we registered to vote where we live. And I encourage you, if you have not already, to do the same. If you have registered to vote, please, I encourage you to not fucking vote Republican. In fact, I encourage you to vote Democrat. Because you know what would really piss Ted Cruz off? If the Congress managed to block it for an entire year, only to have either the first woman president or the first Jewish president selecting the Supreme Court nominee. Neither of which are Republican. That, my friends, would be hubris. That would be the comeuppance. And that hubris is only going to happen if we make it happen. So, let's do this shit. Let's get out there this year. Let's vote. Let's bring this Hubric giant down. Let's knock him down so many pegs that he'll have to wonder, wait, what the hell was I doing? Because what he's trying to do is A, not the will of the people, B, not the will of our government, C, not the will of the founding fathers who went through all the trouble to draft the Constitution that we have, with significant revisions, used to this very day for over 200 years. No, we can't let that happen. Even if for some reason that appointment does get blocked for a whole year, which I highly doubt, we're not gonna let Cruz's little plan become self-fulfilling prophecy. No. In fact, we're going to make his dream of waiting until the next president is selected to have that nominee, have that replacement be picked. We're going to turn that dream into a nightmare. That is the least he deserves. Until next time, keep it casual and vote Democrat.